welcome to another episode of Design Under Influence, where we go under the hood of your architecture company in some ways from an IT perspective. Our day jobs is running a company called GetArc IT, where we only focus on supporting architecture, design, and engineering space. And here with me today to tackle our topic, which I should mention what the topic is. It's going to be the juicy one. Macs versus PCs. I'm broadcasting from Mac. My colleagues are broadcasting from who knows what. They'll tell you. I think it's PC for sure. But I have a couple elite engineers here at GetArc IT. Let's meet them real quick and we'll dive right into the subject. Mark and Harry, say hello to our viewers.
Hello, Harry.
Hi, I'm Mark. Nice to meet you guys.
Hey. Thanks for joining me, guys. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you are you run, and helping our clients, making sure their projects get completed on time, and solving IT issues. But let's take a pause and do some educational stuff. So Macs versus PCs. We talked pre-show, Mark, and you mentioned that only about 10% of our clients are full Mac shops. The other 90% are actually PC. But there's a little caveat there. Almost a third, you said, almost a third of our clients have at least one Mac within their sort of ecosystem, within their computer systems. Why is that, Mark?
Combination of things. There's two reasons why companies would, I feel from my experience with Arc IT, is one of them is a lot of the C-suite users like to have a Mac. Generally, the reason I find with that is because they use a Mac at home. This from experience with Arc IT clients. They use a Mac at home. They aren't in the trenches doing the design software, and they're just doing a lot of email and just web browsing and Office apps and those type of documents, maybe editing just a PDF here and there. And so they like to keep, they like to use a Mac, and they're not knee deep in the trenches with their the designers and stuff like that. Then the other one are marketing. A lot of our firms that we have their marketing team has used Macs because they're full on in the Adobe suite, which supports Macs really well.
Harry, are Macs better than PCs? Let's just set that. Let's put a stake in the ground here.
I think there's no definite answer to that. That's too simple of a question. There are just several factors that you need to consider when you're deciding if you want to go with a Mac versus a PC. If you're specifically a designer working with high-level programs, CPU-intensive, memory-intensive programs, I think you probably want to favor Macs. Because from our dealings with designers and engineers and architects, the feedback is Macs are better with drawing programs. But then if you're looking there could also be other factors that comes into play, not just design factors. There's operating systems preferences, there's a price factor, there's upgrades, there's maintenance. There are other factors that play into the decision of whether Macs or PCs. But specifically, if you're looking for specifically architects who just day-to-day work on designs, they would probably want to lean more towards Macs than PCs.
Interesting. And yet only 10% of our shops, of architecture shops we support, run their systems on Macs. Why is that, Mark? Any thoughts on sort of why is such a big gap between PC shops and Mac shops?
So this is a very loaded question from a management perspective. Meaning IT, and it's a lot easier to manage coming from a Windows environment. When Microsoft has put a lot of systems in place that allow you to manage your devices on the network or remotely now with the cloud being there. And the compatibility with Windows and other services are great. Now, with Macs, there are solutions in play that you can have that will allow you to manage them centrally. They're just not as fluid as Microsoft.
Gotcha. So think back through the years you've supported our clients, both of you guys. You have some years behind your belt. business disruption, IT-related business disruptions are the most frustrating thing and costly for any business. It just shuts everything down. It's just morale. It's everything else. It's just like you can't get through the projects. You can't get through the work you needed to do. You have to scramble and try to find solutions. These kinds of events. Have you seen more of those happening in PC shops or Mac shops, or it's kind of equal?
Personal experience, I think we have had more issues with Windows, but then that could just be inflated numbers. That could just be because we have more Windows out there than Macs. Mm-hmm. But historical data does say that Macs are more reliable than Windows. So you can make of that what you may. But on our side, we tend to get more issues related to Windows computer. But again, that could just be because 90% of the devices out there are Windows.
Gotcha. And what about security? Is there like a clear winner between? I mean, obviously in the past, Macs were less prevalent and less prone to attacks, just because people, would choose to code attacks on Windows computers because there's a lot more out there. Now I think it's sort of equalized in some ways, but do you see for a business, and because cybersecurity is kind of like a key subject that nobody wants to think about until something happens, and then everybody thinks about it. Anyway, is there an edge in either platform?
I don't feel anymore, because the more sophisticated the attacks get, they're not attacking. I guess there still would be an edge with a Mac. With that said, the most attacks that we see on a daily basis are they're trying to hack passwords, like get you to enter your credentials on a link that was a bad link. They're not injecting as much into your computer. We've put systems in place for Windows that can close to eliminate the ability for a computer to be taken over, or stuff to be a Windows PC to be infected. So now it's because the emails that come in and say, "Oh, this is Microsoft, change, click here to change your password," that's going to affect a Windows or Mac user. And that's more the engineering attacks that I see on a daily basis.
So it's a lot of it like social engineering, I would call it, or similar to that, where somebody tries to pretend to be a supplier, pretend to be your partner, pretend to be somebody, and some of them get very, very sophisticated.
Absolutely.
So that's really the threat right now, or majority of the threat, and that's sort of equal for both platforms. I can totally see that. Now let's step into something a little bit more specific to architecture businesses. Some software don't run on Mac, right?
Yeah.
What is it, and why?
Compatibility reasons, really. And then there are, especially when you're an architect, there are some major players out there. There's the AutoCAD, there's the AEC that makes the AEC a collection of software. They also have products that are available in Macs, or they're starting to make software that's more compatible with Macs. But Macs have their own, or certain vendors have different applications that just work on Macs, and certain vendors have applications that just work on Windows. So that should also be another factor that comes into play when you're making the decision whether to go with a Mac or Windows, is what kind of software do you use? I know AutoCAD now has a software that's compatible with Macs, but previously it was just Windows. So most AutoCAD users, or previous AutoCAD users, just used to write on Windows. So Mac users tend to use more Vectorworks. There's also other software that Mark can probably speak to. But that's also something that you should consider when you're deciding whether to go with Macs or Windows. What softwares do you use and what's compatible with each platform?
Mark, anything to add here?
Yeah, I think the two biggest players that aren't compatible with Mac, especially in the AEC world, are Bluebeam and Revit. Those are the two ones that the big boys that are, if you use Revit, it is not compatible with a Mac. And so you have to move over to the Windows side of things. Bluebeam is a very, very popular PDF editing tool for the AEC world. That also is not does not work on a Mac. So you have to use Windows there as well. And a lot of rendering software that is that is very commonly used in the AEC world is Windows only too. So for instance, one of our largest client that is a Mac shop, they have two PCs. One is to run QuickBooks, and the other one is to run rendering software. And for whatever reason, they just aren't compatible with Macs. So they have to have those. Those are the two Windows PCs that they have.
Well, that's an interesting solution. What are the top support issues that you guys are seeing with Macs? Like, what is the most prevalent issue that you resolve for our Mac clients?
It was printing in a centrally print, managed world. That printing was a big issue that we had. They were, and I can speak a little specifically to it. They were running due to the projects they had. They were using an older Vectorworks, which required them to be on an older Mac OS, which was known to have it's not too old, but it was not the latest or the one before that. And there was a lot of printing issues. And luckily they were able to get off those projects, move up to a newer Vectorworks, and we were able to upgrade their OS. And once we were able to do that, it resolved the printing. Printing is a big thing. And it seems that Adobe is another big thing on Macs that we have issues with too.
Harry, what about what you've seen? And then we'll switch to PCs and the biggest support issues for PCs.
I think I'll probably stay with Mark on the printing issue. That has probably been the most prevalent topic that we have coming from our Mac users. And it's mostly people or clients who use Adobe. There are certain features in Mac's printing software that are not compatible with Adobe application or the printer that we've had to struggle with in the past. I believe with the recent Mac upgrades, those may have been resolved, but that's still something to look out for. Mac's compatibility with printing software and with Adobe.
What about PCs? What's the most common thing that people come to us with?
I think PCs are more generic. It could be anything really. Printing is one of them. It could be my hard drive is failing. It could be my Windows operating system is not working. PCs are more generic. They're more prone to different kinds of issues than Macs. There's more issues in PCs than in Macs. Macs are more reliable in that sense when it comes to dealing with issues.
So it's a more stable platform, less disruptions due to software malfunctioning or not communicating properly, stuff like that. Now, let me ask you a question. Be honest with me on this one. When we have a new client coming on board with Arc IT and we're taking over their IT support, how happy are you? Or what is your feeling if they're a Mac shop versus a PC shop? Are you another Mac shop, or you're like, all right, great, another Mac shop? How do you feel about that? Be honest.
I handle a lot of the onboardings at Arc IT. And if there's two things. If they're a Mac shop and they're coming in their Mac shop, there are solutions that we can put in place that make it a much more manageable environment. And that's we can do this whole topic for a different conversation. But Apple Business Manager, and it's just a great way to be able to control. And then also the MDM that we use. If they're flexible, either have Apple Business Manager or they're flexible to get Apple Business Manager. And for us to implement that, it makes the management of it a lot easier. I really do enjoy working on Macs. That's the first time that's ever come out of my mouth. I do enjoy working on Macs, especially as I've had more experience with it and I've learned more. And it's not a scramble when something comes up. There's more frequent things that I'm seeing. I know the terminal command. I just know more on how to navigate through a Mac, and that makes it a more comfortable experience. I'm open to either now. It doesn't make me frustrated or concerned when we bring in Mac clients, basically, because I know what to expect now. So either one is really fine from Arc IT's standpoint, because we can fully manage both.
Interesting. Harry, you have the same opinion, or do you have a different take?
Well, slightly different. I would say I'm more from the aspect of just experience and manageability. We have streamlined processes to manage Windows. It's pretty much it's like clockwork. We know what to do. We know installing the agents. We know how to apply a policy to maintain patches. It's very streamlined the way we manage Windows workstations. And from our experience, especially dealing with like multiple businesses out there, Windows again is the predominant operating system out there. So most IT people are more familiar with Windows operating system than Macs. So from my perspective, I would probably say I'm more excited to work with Windows clients than Mac clients, but just from our brief experience with our Mac users, we are also getting better with managing Macs. It's not as streamlined or as good as we are with managing Windows, but we're getting better at it.
So, but yeah, especially it's 10% of our clients. We have systems. He's a business manager. We have systems to manage it. But for the most part, you're like the virtuoso of PCs. Throw Mac at you. You're like, all right, I'll figure it out. We'll work on it. It's gonna be a fun time. But yeah. it's a little bit of a different. It's you don't have the streamline of the systems in place to get that things done quickly. But then there's less things to get done.
Correct. You can say so.
A lot. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say with Macs, I was thinking about when we were discussing it earlier, Macs, knock on wood, don't have hardware issues and don't have operating system issues. Whereas very commonly we're having to open support cases with Dell or, HP or Lenovo because of a failed motherboard or failed hard drive or failed memory, Wi-Fi card. It just doesn't happen with Macs.
Let's finish off with a little bit of advice from, again, you guys are top engineers. You've done this IT support for a long time. Would it make sense for a shop, for architecture shop? When I say refer to shop, it's architecture business, to switch to Macs? Like, is this a movement that people undertaking? Is it worth it? Is this even happening out there, or is it just all about like the owner's preference and it kind of goes down from there? How do people convert to Macs or even start with that?
I think it's again, it comes down to multiple factors. Macs are more expensive than Windows. So price is one factor that we haven't even discussed. Preference. That's why we have clients who have more of a hybrid environment. They have Windows to do certain things and Macs for certain employees. They can have Macs for designers, and then they have Windows for more of their admin employees. Maintenance. There are multiple factors that come into play there. So depending on what's best for your clients or what's best for your employees, you have to see what works, what software you're using. The multiple factors that come into play for you to say, okay, let's just move to Macs or let's just move to Windows. More often what you would see out there is more of a hybrid environment where a client would say, okay, we want Macs for our designers, and then we want regular Windows for our admins. Just something that more fits to your environments rather than just saying, we are all just going to switch to Macs and have to deal with training a bunch of users on how to use Macs, which could just be a slowdown to your productivity.
So our advice, from what I'm gathering from two of you guys, is a hybrid environment totally okay. Marketing people, designers, C-level, Macs can be more robust, more powerful, more reliable in some ways. Hardware, software issues are less prevalent. And for day-to-day stuff in running rendering and stuff like that, why limit yourself to certain software and let go of Revit and let go of some other things? You can just run those on PCs and get that done. Now, sounds like 33% or like 1/3 of our clients are in those kind of hybrid situations. One last question I want to finish off. Like if there are hybrid shops out there, what's some of the cautionary tales? Like maybe finish out with a piece of advice from each of you, Mark and Harry. Like for those hybrid shops, what's the best, how to phrase it? what's some of the wisdom you can share to run a smoother shop within a hybrid environment?
The management of the devices. So if you want to implement certain security restrictions or from an IT perspective, and to be able to how you manage them, it creates two workloads. Everything, if you do in one RMM, you have to do in an MDM. There's two things you now need to support. That's the hardest thing with the hybrid. And to create a package, a software deployment package, you now have to create two of them. It adds a lot more work for both parties. And compatibility with cables and power cables and having supply, like the entire thing. If you need to have something on hand now, you need to have two devices on hand, two separate devices. It's more overhead. That's a big thing.
I didn't even think about that. You're right. All the cabling is freaking different. They're not
docking stations. Yeah, there's just a million different things you have to keep in mind.
Yeah, Harry, what advice would you give to hybrid shops or shops that are trying to go hybrid?
Yeah, probably just find a good IT company that can manage that for you, because it could get quite complex, especially with your internal workflow, because Macs have different file formats than Windows. So you might have trouble sharing files internally and whatnot. So being able to have, a good internal IT plan that can help you deal with that workflow, which is where a good IT company comes into play, would be what my advice would be. Because that could be quite a challenging environment.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Take advice from Harry. He knows what he's talking about. Hire a great IT company. Speaking of great IT companies, Mark, you know any?
Arc IT.
Oh, one comes to mind. Yeah. So, hey guys, thanks you very much for listening. I appreciate your time. And if you need IT support or just have a question, hit us up at getarcit.com. Look, when your client looking to design a hospital, would they hire an architect that specializes in, let's say, residential ADUs? No. They're going to hire architects specializing in building hospitals. Same here. We're specializing in supporting architecture companies. Our guys know a lot about your business before you even walk in the door. And that just doesn't happen in general IT companies out there. So if you need help, support, and love from the best team in the world, getarcit.com. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time. Mark, Harry, appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.